Welcome to the Boomers, Bucks, and Bling podcast, where we turn retirement planning into a bit of a thrill ride. I'm your host, Carl Spiteri, and each week we'll dive into everything from reverse mortgages and staying put in style to Medicare, Social Security, and home safety. But wait, there's more. We're not just going to talk all about money and business. We're going to add some sparkle, some bling, as we chat with travel pros, party planners, and a lot of different topics that's going to help you make the most of your golden years. So grab a cup of tea or whatever it is you want to drink, get comfy, and let's make retirement planning an adventure of a lifetime. Welcome to this edition of Boomers, Bucks, and Bling. Today, we have a real special guest. I'm really excited. We have Lynn here with us, and he's going to kind of talk to us about life after, 50, 60, 70, whatever number you want to use. It's rediscovering yourself and refiguring out who you are and what you want to be. I always talk to people when we talk about retirement. There's a point where you work because you have to, and then there's what I call Freedom Day, where you work because you want to, or you just want to do something. You want to still contribute. So I think Lynn's going to be able to help us figure that out. So Lynn, go ahead and introduce yourself. Take a few moments.
Thank you, Carl. My name is Lynn Friesth, and I'm 75 years old. I actually took quote retirement in 2015 at 65, after 40 years with John Deere and manufacturing and engineering and stuff. So, but since then, I've been on a 10-year journey to repurpose myself and reinvent myself. So I started off that journey with being a manufacturing consultant, because that was pretty close to what I knew how to do. But then later on, I said, well, wait a minute. Some friends actually said, Lynn, you've learned how to do all this stuff become an entrepreneur, learned how to create a business. Why don't you show other people how to do that? So I started gathering some information, and at some point I learned how to be a podcaster. So I had about 200 episodes. And
will you teach me, by the way? Will you give me
Okay.
lessons on how to be a podcaster? Because I'm still discovering it.
Well, so I had about 200 episodes, some of it in manufacturing, a lot of it in the Encore Live type arena. But I had over 70 interviews with people like yourself, Carl, or who people were involved in these things. What was their experience and what was their journey? So I learned from there, and then a lot of research, probably 60 some books on this whole arena, so to inform me. And then obviously I was informed by my career. I had worked with people, I had coached people, had done stuff like that. So, all of this stuff kind of comes together. And I think that's going to be one of the things that I can help people with, because you've got a long career, you've accumulated a lot of wisdom, but sometimes it's invisible to you. You're so good at some things, you don't even know how to articulate them. And in some cases, you might want to put them to use in a different arena. So you may have been a director of marketing, but now all of a sudden you'd like to do something in the nonprofit arena. Well, all those skills about how to handle, diverse set of customers, all those things in marketing, that all translates into how in a nonprofit world, how do you get with your contributors? How do you help, engage them and things like that? So I think that's one of the interesting things that people can do. And so that's kind of what I'm here to help people kind of make that transition into what do we do next.
Okay. So when we talk to people about retirement, and I don't particularly give retirement advice. I try not to anyway. But I'm in the mortgage arena, and we work a lot around reverse mortgages and just helping people discover, what's the last third of their life going to be, and a lot of times it's oops, I should have saved more, or oops, I should have done this, or I should have done that. Well, a lot of times working within your passion, maybe like with you retired at 65. That doesn't mean that's the end of your ability to earn. That just means it's time to maybe rediscover what it is you want to do and earn. Lesson number 1 on podcasting, I think, turn off the cell phone, huh? But anyway, we're live with this, so what the heck? So why don't you explain, okay, what would step 1 be? I'm 65, I'm retiring, or I'm being forced retired, right? Sometimes that happens. And I plan. I have a long family line of I'm going to get old. That's the goal anyway. And I got a 30-year retirement. Well, I've only worked for maybe 40 years. So how do I fill that gap? So give me some steps. So what would you do?
Well, the first thing, and often with people who have been high achievers, they ask me about, well, what do I do? And I have to kind of step back and say, well, let's start with the conversation of who do you want to be? What do you want to do and how do you want to? And again, as we think, like I said, our picture of retirement and many pictures of retirement are from our grandfathers or grandparents. You retired at 65, you were lucky to make it to 75. And so there was about a 10-year period.
Yeah.
You planned well, you planned poorly, you only had about 10 years to fiddle with one way or the other. But now it could, as you said, it could be 30 years. And so you can actually plan to do multiple things. Well, in fact, I've talked to other people in the financial services, and they talk about the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. So you may have different phases as you go in. Likewise, you may think about, I'm going to spend 2 years resting and recovering from my high-paced corporate life. Great. But you might also kind of consider that as a period of sabbatical where you start learning some new things, learning about yourself, because I've also seen that where people said, okay, I did about all the cruises I can do for now, and I'm tired of pickleball. So it's something about, let's start designing.
That's my
the
fear,
life.
by the way. Yeah, that's my fear.
Let's start actually making a design and recognizing that you may design what you want to do for the next 5 years, but then you probably will redesign it for the next 5 years after that. You have chance to try a lot of different things. Many times people say, well, I want to work with the grandkids. Well, and that's great too, but grandkids grow up and then what? So it's one of those things where I think just giving people the context of, you're going to be planning for almost as long as you are working. Now, we all had about 20 years of education to prepare us for our quote careers, but often we don't have much preparation for this next period of time.
Right. Right. So I don't know what would be a first step be? Okay, so I'm newly retired, and I'm gonna take a year and just screw around and whatever, see grandkids, see whatever, fish,
Mm-hmm.
go on a couple of cruises. Really get my wife annoyed with me because I'm at the house all the time, or my husband or spouse or significant other. Right? We all need our separation, I think, at some point. So
Yeah.
so all of a sudden, wow, now I got all this free time, and how am I gonna fill it? What am I gonna do?
Right. And we start off, by talking about you really have to reconstruct your identity. Again, often people who have been so wrapped up in their corporate life, that is literally their identity. I'm the
Yeah.
director of marketing or whatever it may be. Now, all of a sudden, we have to sit back and say, okay, let's redefine what you want your identity to be. And then the next step after that we get into is, you've had a lot of wisdom. You've learned a lot of stuff. You've been around a while. How do we uncover some of that stuff? And so we go through a structured, and I have a process called Glean, but it's just an acronym for how do you actually go through and discover what are the things, one, that you did, not just titles or positions, but what are the things, and more importantly, what are the things you love doing? Often that involves, sometimes it doesn't involve work with people, but often that's where your particular skills go. I learned how to handle these particular issues with my teams, or I learned how to recover from some, big thing that went wrong at work, those kinds of things. So then we'd start talking, okay, we're going to articulate what your wisdom is. And then after we get there, okay, from your wisdom, then how do we create a value proposition? And again, this may be for profit work, nonprofit work, may be for just, I want to write a book or something. But what are you going to do, and how do you explain it to people? Because all of a sudden, nobody cares what your titles were. It's kind of like one of the
Senior
phrases.
VP of blah blah blah. Yeah, it doesn't matter, right?
One of the phrases I've heard people say is, "Gee, I used to be somebody." And so there's that piece of it. You really have to think about, okay, I'm good at this, and I can tell people that I'm good at this. Now, another thing that comes up is sometimes you're going to have to find a new bunch of friends, to be quite honest, because one, the work friends, they're probably still busy with work, or they just may be focused on retirement, whatever it is. Family and your personal family and friends, they tend to like you the way you were.
Yeah.
So if you want to, you probably need to go out and find. That's what I did. I went out and got connected with groups of people who were entrepreneurs, some younger than me, some my age. But all of a sudden, I was focusing on being in entrepreneurial groups as opposed to being in coffee at Hardee's every morning or whatever it was.
Okay, so let's stop there. So you went out and met entrepreneur. How did you do that? Because I think that'd be a really important first step in anything, just the new friend group, the new people to associate with. So maybe you could talk about that for a minute.
Well, and for me, it was I started going to some conferences. Again, even just before I retired, I went to a conference that was on marketing. Okay, I was an engineer and stuff, but I said I'm going to go to this internet marketing conference, and I just happened to run into 4 or 5 people that I still connect with now. But I was there completely out of my element, but I was learning from all the different people and what they were doing. And many of them were younger than I was, but not all of them. Some of them were, again, seasoned people too. And so some of that is you just go to some of these things that you probably wouldn't have thought of to go through, certainly in your working life. But hey, there's an internet conference. There's somebody else. There's always somebody around. Social media marketing world is one I know. People go to those, and that just exposes you to the variety of possibilities, I think. You may not choose to stick with whatever it was, but I think I went to one conference, was on internet copywriting. I wasn't terribly interested in that subject, but I knew a lot of people who were there would be people that would be, interesting to get to know. So that's kind of how I'd often recommend people start. And the other piece is, and I did this locally. We had some work in our local area for entrepreneurs, and in fact, I ended up being a mentor for a thing where they have a lean startup program that they invite people to go through. And so I became a mentor in that to help other people. But through that, I learned the lean startup process, as well as got to know some really interesting people, some younger, some older.
So you kind of put yourself out of your comfort zone, commit to doing something, go do it, and then take it from there. So
Yeah, and again, whether it be identity or for whether it be finding new friends, these are all experiments. You're not necessarily, once again, I come from a manufacturing background where you're always 99% sure you're going to do the right thing. Well, I had to get rid of that idea because in the entrepreneurial world, if you're 65% sure, you should move ahead. And but that's a little bit. So I just suddenly saying, okay, this isn't life or death, what I'm doing here. They're experiments. So I'm going to go try out a conference, or I'm going to try to get in conversation with somebody. That's you kind of work your way. It's by iteration, not necessarily I can't give you the perfect plan, but because your plan will be different than mine.
Correct. Really interesting. I never really thought of that way as a way to go out and meet people, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Perfect sense. So tell me some more. So tell me some more first steps. So we've gone out, we've identified whatever, we've kind of talked through things. We went out and met some people, and I want to continue on this journey. So I have plenty of time and maybe not enough money, but more money than maybe yes, maybe no. I guess let's leave money out of it for a minute and just where do we go from here?
And it's one of those things that in today's world, money's much less of a hindrance than it used to be. Now with the AI tools, with just basically Zoom, all the technologies. Now, again, you may have to kind of refresh your abilities on technologies because sometimes you may have slipped a little behind on it. But
yeah, because I understand the baby boomer generation and technology aren't necessarily best friends, right? So,
Well, they're not, but interestingly enough, some of the biggest users of Facebook are the boomers.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so it's and again, I won't say that I learned to code or anything like that. I learned to use the tools that were there, and as new tools develop. So it's not like you have to jump back into a coding class. That was probably what people were saying a few years ago. But you do have to kind of get comfortable using Zoom, those things. And
And
now,
Zoom is free, right? You can get versions of free Zoom,
yep, yep.
right? So no
And
cost there.
no, and even the paid ones you can get for a couple $100 a year, whatever
Yeah.
it is. So
Yeah.
it's again a lot of these things. I was just talking to a good friend who's done a lot of work in this arena, has his business very well developed, but he said his tech stack costs him maybe 2,000 a month or something. And then, like I said, he's running a good sized business with all that. So, and he's making a whole lot more than that. But you can do it for a couple $100. You can have a pretty significant tech stack that will really support you.
So tell us what a tech stack is.
Okay, it's the set of tools you use. So for me, it's Zoom would be obviously one of the things I started with. I also have podcasting software that I've used in the past. I've got, and then some of the kind of the interesting things I'm doing now is I created a custom AI of me called Lynn AI through a group so I can use that as a 24/7 coach that I can offer to people. That they can talk to this whenever they want and not try to call me at 3 a.m. in the morning or whatever, but still I'm available for further consultation. And then another new tool that I just started using, the tool is actually called Sintra, I believe, but it has 12 custom bots, as it were. Just a few of them are, one, to help you do copywriting for any emails you send out. Two, it would be how to organize your calendar. Three might be how to, connect with people, help you create lists. So those are some. And then, like one of the things is an email provider and a web page. A lot of those are very simple. You can have all-in-one packages that you can, and they're really do-it-yourself type things, or can be. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on things, but you can have a web page, you can have an email, and then obviously there's free versions of LinkedIn, free versions of YouTube. So you have ways to spread the word that you're available to do something for someone.
Okay. So you're obviously technology driven or taught, or maybe self-taught. But say I'm not. Say I worked. I was a flower designer, and and I don't know if there's technology involved in flower design, but I'm assuming there isn't. I know nothing about it. But so some ideas, some thoughts around, I guess that's probably a bad example because it's very vision kind of example. But if what I'm doing really didn't involve any technology, but it was, but I'm still searching for that something that's going to fulfill me on my last 10, 20, 30 years on this earth. How about some thought process there?
Well, again, it's quite surprising. Technology gets involved in a lot of things, including people have whole businesses around teaching flower arranging.
Well, there's an idea. That's exactly what I was looking for, right?
Yeah, and so they there's one guy on
I know
YouTube.
I'm putting you on the spot here, so I apologize.
No worries. No, I need to think through these things too. But there's a guy that he's the Dry Creek Wrangler. He originally started out teaching people how to learn how to use their horses. And he did a lot of it on YouTube, but he had some in person. But then later on, he just said, hey, I'm going to do some videos on what I think about life. And all of a sudden it was people were excited about that. So you never know what can come up, but it's interesting. And it's not so much you have to be expert in any technology. It's just how to use the tools that are out there. And they're, like I said, they're getting easier to use all the time. So sometimes it's just a matter of, am I willing to look silly while I do something?
Mm-hmm.
When I first did the podcast, everybody said, okay, you need to learn to do 10 terrible podcasts, and then you'll start getting better. and that's kind of what I did. So,
Well, I think I'm on my like 25th terrible podcast. So, thank goodness for guests. I'd be in big trouble. Tell me how a little bit about AI and how AI helps the average person, and maybe how it helped you kind of develop what it is you're doing.
well, it's a great thinking partner, I guess I'll say. I mean, they have it's been improving literally year over year and even month over month. So, for example, I had a lot of webinars that I'd done. I had coaching calls that I'd done. I had things that I'd created, PowerPoint presentations, you might say. Well, now you can throw all that into either a Chat GPT or a Claude or one of these AI tools, and say, "Hey, find out what it is that I've got in here that might be interesting." Now, it won't give you the final answer, but it's kind of a back and forth thing where it'll probably show you, "Hey, this is what I found when I looked at all the stuff that you put in here. Here's the threads that I'm seeing." So it's again, it's low cost. You don't have to hire some guru to sit there, or you can at least get a start on some of that stuff, even with the simple tools we have today.
Wow, pretty amazing stuff. Pretty amazing stuff, huh?
Yeah, and it's kind of like I for writing or something like that. Used to be you'd hire a copywriter to do something, and maybe even your work life you had specialists who did writing for you. Well, now you can at least say, "This is my rough thoughts on this idea. Give me something back." Now, again, can't just publish whatever you get back, but all of a sudden you'll start seeing it'll do some of the polishing for you, and then you can do a final edit. I have a good friend that he teaches people how to do books using AI, and he says it's really 20-60-20. You put in 20% of your raw thoughts and materials, you let the AI do 60% of the massaging and the grammar and all that kind of stuff, and then you go back in and you polish the final 20% of it. And that's not much different when people hired ghostwriters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it always amazed me how hard it was to come up with concepts and ideas prior to this, and now it's actually pretty straightforward. So the two AIs that you use, basically chat. Everybody uses chat.
Yep.
What's your other favorite?
The other favorite is one called Claude, Claude. It's from Anthropomorph. It's the other big AI company,
Hmm.
and it chat seems to be best suited to research and things like that. Claude is a little better at providing written content. So if I'm trying to write something, Claude seems to give me a little bit better results. But
Okay.
but then beyond that, as I said earlier, I use this coaching thing. The program is called CoachVox, but it allows you to create a coach of yourself. And then this other program, which was the Centra program, allows you to, I guess, do a lot of the business things that if you're a coach or a flower art designer, you don't want to spend all your time doing the business stuff. And this thing, this is a brand new program, and I'm sure it's going to evolve. So even though I talk about it today, it may be something entirely different, in a few months. But the tools are allowing a lot of things that used to be very hard to be less hard.
Hmm. Wow. Well, that's great. I always like to keep these to 20 minutes or so. So I think we're about that point. Why don't you tell our audience how to get a hold of you? Should they have any questions or want to hire you, or whatever that may wherever that may go.
Sure. Well, my website is lynnfriesth.com, and we'll probably have a link for that in the show notes. And then I would offer also to people that I'll have a link provided to you for, you can sign up and try out my Lynn AI free version. And you can just use that as a way to interact and ask questions. I mean,
and you said free.
That part is free. I have a paid version that has a little more depth and richness to us, but the free version is enough to kind of start people on the, it's what I've found is it's a whole lot better than having a page of frequently asked questions, because you can never anticipate everyone's questions.
Every question, yeah.
Nor is it, hey, you can go back and look through 200 podcast episodes, you might glean something. Well, kind of, this stuff is all in this kind of an interactive format. So I offer that to people too, and that's free. And they can explore it and see what they think.
Yeah, great. All right, so we know how to contact you. Anybody out there with an idea, with a thought, contact Lynn. This should be the best part of your life, right? It's you have time, you have wisdom. Make the most of it.
Yeah. And, I think you think of this next phase of your life, whatever it is, it's one for development. It's not one for just, pickleball, because you can not only find fulfilling things for you to do, but you can also, help others with that as you go along.
I think we'll close with that. Thank you for your time, Lynn.
Thanks, Carl.
Bye-bye.